Hey, listen, if you enjoyed the videos that we release on our YouTube channel, please make sure that you take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate it. If you already subscribed, thank you so very kindly. Be sure to click the notification bell so that as we drop new videos, you're first to be notified. Now, in this video, I want to talk about the 8 common areas of seller distress. As real estate investors, we're always looking for what we call motivated sellers. Well, a motivated seller typically is a seller who has a reason for selling, or they may have a distress that has forced them to become a seller, because not all sellers are motivated because of a voluntary act to just want to sell. A lot of sellers are motivated because they have been forced by certain distress situations that have caused them to become sellers. So I want to give you 8 common areas of seller distress. One common area is because the property is a fixer-upper. So a lot of times people will own properties. They may have bought it to fix it up. They just ran out of money. Certain things came up in life. They never got back to it. Or once they bought it, over time, through deferred maintenance, they just didn't have the ability or the money or the time or whatever to maintain it and to keep it up. And so now that property is categorically a fixer-upper. It needs some work. Maybe light rehab, maybe standard rehab, maybe heavy rehab. But either way, it's a fixer-upper. So when you see properties that have levels of distress regarding the repairs that are needed, it starts from the outside in. So that means you can see from the outside a lot of times that there's a level of distress on that property. That could start with the shrubs, the trees, the landscape. It's been neglected. You can look at the sidewalk sometime. You can see that it hadn't been pressure washed. If you look at the house, there are vines growing on the side of the house. All of those are signs of distress. And if it looks like that on the outside, I guarantee it's looking a hot mess on the inside. So fixer-uppers are one of the common areas of seller distress. Number 2, pre-foreclosures. Now, of course, pre-foreclosures are probably going to be fixer-uppers in a lot of cases, unless they're pretty homes. But a pre-foreclosure is a seller distress. It's not necessarily a physical distress as much as it's a financial distress on the seller. It could be a emotional distress. They may have just gone through some things in life. I know people who have found themselves in pre-foreclosure because they lost their job, and they lost their job because a spouse died or whatever the circumstance was that caused them to find themselves in that distress. So pre-foreclosures. A third common area is probate. Probate is a seller distress. Okay, we've worked with people who inherited properties and they didn't even know what to do. Grandma died, mama died, a spouse died. The property wasn't in a trust. They didn't have a will, and they didn't even know that in order for them to even convey the title legally as an heir, that they had to go through probate. So that is a seller distress. Again, any distress is essentially a motivation for the seller to sell you the property. Okay, so we have probate. Another common area is divorce. And every area that I'm addressing, I've dealt with people who were in these. Okay, so I know what I'm saying to be correct. But divorce, you have 2 people who got divorced. They're getting a divorce, so that is a seller distress. Job relocation, you might not think that's a seller distress, but when someone has a job on the other side of the world and they need to sell this home fast, they need to get out of this property for whatever the reasons are. They might not be able to do what needs to be done to get an agent on it. They don't want to wait 45 to 60 days. They don't want to have listing appointments. They don't want people coming in and out of the house. This is where it works perfect for real estate investors and those of us who are able to make things happen quick. Another common area of seller distress is for tired landlords. I know people who they regularly visit the eviction court. And when they go to the eviction court, most of the times they're dealing with mom and pop landlords or small portfolio landlords, people who may have just a handful of homes, they have 2 or 3 evictions going on, those evictions can just bankrupt that mom and pop. Especially, I know people who have owned handfuls of homes and they're working regular jobs just to pay the mortgages on the homes that the tenants are not paying the rent for. So that is a seller distress. Another seller distress is expired listings. So when people have had listings with agents and it just couldn't sell because they're over leveraged, especially in today's world, at least at the time of this video, we have a lot of people who bought properties at the top of the market. They paid more than what they should, and they bought them at a time when interest rates were skyrocketing. So that means their mortgage payments are more than what the rent for that same property would be, and they cannot sell the property and pay commissions and closing costs and all the fees associated to it because their mortgage balance is too high. So guess what? They're over leveraged. They have expired listings. That's a seller distress. And last but not least, a vacant home. When someone has moved or whatever the case is, that home is vacant. I've met people who their parents have died and they lived in other states, and now they're left with this property and they really don't want to live here and they really just don't know what to do. That vacant home has become a seller distress. So these are just 8 common areas of seller distress. Again, if you are a real estate investor or if you want to get into real estate investing, a lot of times the low-hanging fruit, the low barrier to entry is the distressed way. Now, of course, it comes with its risk. It comes with its challenges. However, if you want to get the biggest bang for the buck of your time or your money that you want to put into becoming a successful real estate investor, start with the distress market. And these are some of the common areas of seller distress. So I gave you 8. If you have any questions or if there's anything that my team and I can do to help you, we have a community of real estate investors and upcoming real estate investors who are learning all the ins and outs so that they can be successful in what they do. And we're more than happy to help you as well. So leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the video, and I'll see you on the other side.